Hello, hello, YouTube. It's me again. Just now getting back in from doctor's appointments and stopped by the store and they got me my favorite tea cakes. These are so good. Old-fashioned tea cakes. Glass of milk. Today, we're going to talk a little about remembering. The topic of this is Remember Not to Forget. And forgot what to call it. Over the cover of the video, it's a picture of a home interior gift, for those of you who remember that. That's a long, long time ago. They had a picture of an older white man, looked like he's blessing his food. And when I first saw this picture, I had to be in 79. When I saw this picture, all of a sudden, I remembered who this man was in my mind. This was my papa. And you couldn't get that out of my head. This is from memory when I was probably 2 years old. My papa died when I was 9 years old, but I remember him. I remember how he smelled and everything, but when you look at the thumbnail, that picture. But the title of this video is Remember Not to Forget. And my dear friend Harold, he's been on a couple of videos with me. I was a saying that he made up or whatever is Mary, remember not to forget. And I think it's so ironic that he now has dementia where he does forget things. And this is a lesson and a half for me. It's the grandest lesson I could ever have. And so many times I get frustrated, but the jewel and the gold is in this lesson, and to understand. And I pray the serenity prayer. God, grant me the knowledge and the wisdom to understand what's going on, because I could just get so frustrated, and I have to remember. But I'm saying all this to help myself, and I did a little research last night about memory, and just going to read a little bit. The key is to remember. A, it says memory. What is memory? Memory is the power or the process of recalling what has been learned. The process of recalling what has been learned. So, when we are born, we come here with this reasoning or the memory to learn. Because the baby, when he gets here, it doesn't take long for him to figure out, if I cried, somebody will come and see about me. And even in the process of memory, the baby has this sensory where he could smell. He smells his mother's breast milk. He remembers that smell, and that he's born with that. He knows that that's a food, so it's just innate. We're born with that. And then we have recite from memory. You can recite things from memory. Then it goes on to say the 4 types of memory. Working memory is used to store information for short periods of time. And my friend, he has Harold. He doesn't have this short-term memory. You can tell him something. I mean, I could tell him my darkest secrets, and he may remember it for 20 minutes. And at the hour of maybe an hour later, he don't remember anything I say. So I've said. So sometimes I use them as a sounding board to say things. And I say, and I felt kind of guilty. And I said, well, at least I'm feeling better. But he don't remember what I said. So the working memory, that's the short-term memory. And it says number two is a episodic memory. That's the memory needed to recall past events, recent or distant. It's like episodes, and we do live our life in episodes, and I suppose we know how to separate episodes. You say, or this happened when I was 3, or this happened when I was 10, or this happened last year. But we have our memory in episodes. And number 3 is saying somatic memory. This is used to remember the meaning of words. Somatic is words. Facts. And number 4 is prospective memory. This memory is involved in performing a planned action or to recall a planned intention at some future point in time. Example is remembering to replace the cap on the toothpaste, or remembering to return a movie, or book at the library, remembering to take the trash off, or turn the fire off the stove. It's kind of like in sequence. You remember. It's kind of like sometimes I could be getting ready to go in the kitchen to do something, and something to say, well, on the way in the kitchen, just pick up this because it's on the way, and then you don't have to go back. It's kind of like with reasoning. I don't know. The air conditioning kicked in, so I might have to talk louder. I don't know. But it's so hot here. You can't even do anything without the air conditioning being on. I'll speak a little louder. But now that was a sensory memory. This is iconic memory, a fast decaying store of visual information. Iconic, when you see different things that you see. Oh, and it makes me remember. If I see the color pink, I remember Pepto-Bismol. Or if I see green, I think about the turnip greens my grandmother used to cook. That's what you call iconic. And then the next one is echoic memory. It's a fast decaying store of auditory information that stores sounds that are used for short durations of time. You remember sounds. And it's just like we remember the wind. You hear sounds, you say, oh, that's nothing but the wind. You recognize that. And I can remember, since I'm bringing it up, I remember when we were small, my sister and I, we would sit at the threshold of doors. Used to make a funny sound when the wind blows in the door. And you don't hardly hear that sound anymore, but me and my sister, we would be so anxious when it would do that. We said, Mama, what is that? And she would always say, oh, that's just Mr. 10 making that noise. That's Mr. 10. So I grew up thinking about Mr. 10, thinking that was real, not knowing that was just the metal threshold vibrating when the wind came through there. But that's called echoic memory, the sounds. So we have that kind of stuff, and I think that's the way we're set up to remember things. I mean, you hear a bell ringing. That's the bell. This bell is for us to go to the next class. Or you hear a different type of bell. This is a fire drill. So we learn these things. But most of the time, we can forget how to pull up memories. And like I said, this is dealing with Harold in this phase in his life with this dementia. It's just like, it's just so golden. It's just, I have to, at first I was kind of, I don't say angry, but I was just disappointed. Like, God, why, after all these years, we've been knowing each other since 1994, how come all of a sudden we spending this time together and it's valuable time, but he doesn't remember most of it? And then I have to say, well, God, thank you for this time, because I can make this a jewel for me to understand. And I don't, it's not that I'm saying that I will have dementia and when I get ready to leave this earth or whatever, but it makes me appreciate memories more and appreciate my situation, and I'm learning how to understand his, because when he's in a good frame of mind, I'll ask him some questions. He said, Mary, it's like being in the twilight zone. And I just don't, sometimes I don't know what room I'm in or what's going on. And when he tells me that, I just feel like, wow, I feel so sad. And, how could how could our bodies do this to us? It's like your body is, what is the word? Turning against you. But it's the same thing when you have autoimmune disease, because that's what my body has done. Attacking my brain with MS. So I guess dementia is basically the same thing. It's attacking your brain. But it's still a lesson to be learned in everything. I'm trying not to rush. I just hope, well, we'll see when I play it back to see how much you can hear. But another type of memory is haptic memory. It says it's a type of sensory memory that represents a database for touch stimulus. So I really understand that I can touch things, and oh man, I can just remember so much. I can't even go in a fabric store without touching, because it brings back memories. If I see a piece of leather, I have to rub it. Oh, I remember working with hides and had so many customers come in. They would ask me, how many yards does it take to do this in leather? And they couldn't understand that you just can't take a cow and say, well, I need 3 yards of a cow. It's the whole hide. And there's some parts of the hide that you just can't use, the hands and all of that. But just to touch that leather, it just brings back memories. So I'm a real touchy person. And I think babies, when they come here, they have a sensory as they get older. But not when they first come here. The light. They are very sensitive to the light. And they have to get used to that because they've been in the dark room for 9 months. So the light. And then the voices. They hear sounds. And I'm sure they've heard their mother's voice. They recognize that voice. So those sounds, and when the baby hears their mother calling their name, or they hear, oh, that's mama. So, and even animals know your voices. Cause, oh man, that was a time my youngest son and I, we've been through some things, man. We were living smack dab in the hood, and there were these old stray dogs. You know how you throw rocks at them, try to get them off your porch or out of your trash can. So there were, I think it was 3 dogs that were like that. We would throw at them all the time. So this particular day, I said, Tony, I really want me a nice dog. Let's go down to the shelter and go pick up a real good dog. So we goes down to the shelter, and I think we were only black people down there, but these little sweet little white kids, they were just all with the high pitched voice, mommy, I like this dog, and this and that. So Tony, the dogs were barking, pick me. And so Tony recognized, he said, Mama, that sound like them ghetto dogs that we just ran off from the house the other day. And so I looked, and I kind of took my head around the corner. I said, it sure is. And we got to talking, and Tony said, Mama, they trying to fool these white people over here, blah, blah, blah. And do you know, these dogs recognize Tony's voice and my voice, because we would always yell at them. So these dogs, when they saw us, because we walked around there, and when they saw us, they like, God damn, they gonna blow our cover. And they looked at us. It was two dogs. Yeah, they looked at us, and we looked at them, and they just kind of turned their head and walked away. Like, I wish they would leave. So even animals, they have this sensory, audible. They can hear, and they can smell. Because they know. I forgot what they call it when they could smell their owners. When my oldest son died, my youngest son came around the dogs because he had two big dogs. And when my youngest son came around the dogs before the funeral, oh, these dogs got so happy. They just knew that that was my son that passed away. And I asked my daughter, I said, now, how were they thinking that that's Keith? And she said, no, Mama, they smell, I forgot what it's a word. I can't even think of it. But they smell the, oh, it's not hormone, maybe it's hormone, something like that. But they could tell that they had the same kind of hormones in them. And these dogs, you couldn't tell them that it wasn't my oldest son. So the sensory, the smell, and all of this is coming through memory. And it still comes from your brain. The CPU of our body is the brain. So we have to realize that we can control and remember, not to forget, because that is always there. You just have to know how to access it. You talk about memory, random access memory, where you don't have to go through alphabetical. Let's go through the A's. But I'm looking for something that starts with a P. But no, you got to go through every alphabet. You don't have to do this with our mind because it's random. The subject that I'm searching for is collard greens. So let me just type in collard greens, and there it is. In my mind, I'm thinking about that. Oh, I'm thinking about some collard greens. So there it is in my mind. So that's random access. So we do have that. If you smell something, my sensory is really, I hear a certain song. It just takes me to a place, and I hear a certain gospel song. It just, oh man, I go way back to that point in time. So the hearing, and then the smells, and the touch. If I get a good body massage and just different parts of my body, it stimulates me. The bottom of my feet, that does that. So, but what I did learn through massage therapy and just studying different subjects. Excuse me, I'm gonna drink. Is how to access these parts of my memory and picking up key words. And a lot of people in my family didn't believe that I had that ability to do that, to remember things. I think about my Pappa. Pappa, well, he looked like a white man, but during that time, know if somebody white, black, or what, but he looked like a white man. And I remember sitting in his lap all the time. So I must have been one of these little toddlers that climb up on you and pick at you. I remember messing with his hair. He had long, straight hair. And I remember poking him. And I remember one time he had this bump. They used to call it a sty. He had a sty on his eye. And I kept bothering him. And, Papa, how you hurt your eye? Papa this, Papa that. And I worried him. And he finally said, Gal. That's what they called us back then, Gal. He said, Gal, I fell in the toilet and got flushed down the toilet. And when I came back up, I had this bump on my eye. And I was able to swim. That's how come I'm here. I didn't drown. What did Papa tell me that lie for? Because I believed him. It took me months to be able to go to the toilet without having my sister to hold my hand, because I didn't want to fall in the toilet. But I just remember my Papa. And we would sit there. he wore, I don't know why, I know he had more clothes than this, but he wore a lot of khaki stuff, a khaki shirt and a khaki pair of pants, and they had a funny smell. It wasn't like he didn't bathe, but it was a dusty smell. You know how you could have clothes that's been in a closet of starch and it's just been there for a while. That smell. And sometimes I smell it now and I just say, oh, that's Papa passing by. So that's my early memory of people. Now my mother, I just remember her breast. I remember sucking her breast all the time. I do have that memory. And my daddy, when I think about hearing him, it's a fear. I was afraid of him. When he came home, we would all try to hide up under the table or somewhere. You just didn't want to be in his way. But Papa was, like I say, I get a whiff of his smell every now and then. I say, oh, that Papa passing by. And I remember my grandmother, his wife, Miss Marshall, Miss Pearl, that's what he called her. She was so mean. And she didn't want him spitting on her flowers. She said, they called each other Mr. Dave and Miss Pearl. David Marshall and Pearl Campbell. But they always said Mr. Dave and Miss Pearl. She said, Mr. Dave, quit spitting on my flowers. You're going to kill them. I'm sitting there. I'm saying, how you going to kill her flowers? And for me to understand that, Grandma died when I was 3. So to even understand what killing something meant, but I just said, yeah, he can't kill her flowers just by spitting on them. So every time Papa would spit, I'd spit too. But his spit was brown. And it just bothered me. I spit and I leaned off the porch trying to see had my spit turned brown, and it just never did. But I knew to stay underfoot with Papa because the bread man would come every day a certain time, and Papa knew when they were coming. And my sister and my baby brother, it was like they didn't care. But I knew if I stayed under Papa's foot, when the bread man came, he was gonna give me a piece of that cake. What was it, cinnamon roll or whatever it was. And the bread man would come, and it looked like he would sneak up to him and say, "Hey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. Dave here." And he was ramble through them old stiff jean pockets and give him some change. And me and Papa would hurry up and eat that little cake. And that was our little secret. But I remember Papa and I remember how he smelled. And like I said, that's one of my first memories. And I don't know. It's so much I remember, but different smells and things like that. I remember we were real poor coming up in the projects, but I remember if you walking between the apartments, you could smell what they were cooking. There was one lady named Miss Garrett. She had a bunch of children, but they always had something to eat. They ate beans every day, beans and cornbread every day. And some days she would cook that jack mackerel, and it smelled so good. And I smell it now. I think about her. But I'm coming up on 23 minutes. I don't want to feel rushed because it's just a series of things about memory, my memory in particular, and how my memory saved me. And I just don't know how to explain it sometimes because the inner voice is what I was able to hear. And it's still coming from that auditory memory. When I first heard my inner voice, I've told y'all this story before about the first time I ever heard my guardian angel, my God, myself, whatever, me, myself, or I. The first time I ever heard it, I was in 3rd grade. I lost my spelling book. And my friend, Eureka, bless her heart, she's gone on. But she was my first friend in the 1st grade. I would cry every day in the 1st grade. And the teacher name was Miss Hill. She said, Urethra, Ricks, grab this gal and make her stop crying because I'm sick of her. Urethra would just put her arms around me and pat me. She said, Mary Sims, don't cry. I'm going to tell you a story. And she would tell me stories about Indians, Muskogee Indians. She'd tell me this story every day, and I was just happy. I think my biggest problem was I was spoiled. That's what it was. So every day she had to tell me this story. But this particular time, I lost my spelling book. I'm in the 3rd grade. Urethra has been my savior since the 1st grade. So I say, Urethra, I lost my spelling book. What am I going to do? So after school, we would go through all the pigeonholes looking for my book. Man, in my mind, I said, who would steal a spelling book? Nobody want a spelling book. And she finally told me, she said, Mary Sims, you're going to have to pray to Jesus to help you find this book because we done looked everywhere. She said, when you say your prayers tonight, you ask Jesus to help you. So that night, I said my little prayers, and God bless me, my daddy, mama, and everybody in the family. And at the end of the prayer, I said, oh, Urethra told me to pray and ask Jesus. So I just said, Jesus, where is my spelling book? I need it. I heard a voice. It was a woman's voice. And it says, you'll find your spelling book tomorrow. It's going to be a little hard on you, but you'll find it. I looked up in the sky, the ceiling, and I looked. My sister, she was asleep. I said, who said that? Who said that? Okay, I forgot about it and went on to bed. That next morning, I'm walking to school at the corner where the crossing guard help you across the street. And while I'm crossing the street, I hear the same voice. Remember, there's that word, remember. Remember, you're going to find your spelling book. It's going to be a little hard on you. I said, oh, I sure did say that. By the time I got across the street, I forgot. Remember not to forget, but I forgot. And after lunch, this mean teacher, Miss Haswell, she was just ungodly mean. If you had to go to the bathroom, she'd let you go. But when you came back, you had to put your name on the board before you went. And when you got back, you had to hold 10 books and stand on one foot for 10 minutes. And most kids just rather pee on themselves than to go through that. So that's how mean she was. So Miss Haswell, mean. She pull open her drawer. She got this big old belt. She gonna whoop you with it. So that particular day, I'm sitting there scooting close to Urethra so I could, spell in time. I could kind of pretend that I knew what the next word was. Miss Haswell, Mary Sims, come up here. I said, ooh, what she want? She ain't never called me up to her desk. So I go up there. I said, yes, ma'am, Miss Haswell. Where's your spelling book? I don't remember. I lost it. She slowly pulled open that drawer. And I knew it's where she kept that strap. Before she could say another word, I just fell out in the floor, kicking and screaming, just crying my heart out. She said, gal, get up off that floor. I ain't gonna whoop you. She pulled out my spelling book. This book been in my drawer for 2 weeks, and this is the way y'all treat y'all spelling books. Get up off that floor. I was embarrassed, but it was just the idea that you had this book for 2 weeks, and she could have been and told me about that book. But that was what the voice had said. It's gonna be a little hard on you, but you'll find it. But that voice. There have been so many occasions that this voice saved my life. I could go on and on. You just have to go through some of my videos, and I talk about the voice. And finally figured out that voice, that's my voice. Because I didn't know how I sounded until back in the 70s when we could afford to get a tape recorder, and I actually heard myself talk. I said, oh, that's that lady's been talking to me since I was in the 3rd grade. And I didn't tell nobody. I just had to ponder on that. So that voice has been with me forever and a day. But we're gonna. I'm gonna keep telling you guys this thing and how you know, it may not work for other people, but how I managed to step out of the world that I had been taught that was right, and this is the way and the only way. I had to step out on that, and this voice that I heard in the third grade has always been there to whisper in my ear. And there are times when I just did not pay attention. This voice actually yelled at me. Didn't I tell you? And I'm sure some of y'all have heard that, how you fussing at yourself when you don't follow instructions. You know, it's just there constantly, and it's not always this sweet, gentle voice. Sometimes it'll put you back in line. So anyway, I'm coming up on 30 minutes, and man, I didn't know I could talk like that. I guess I'm getting winded. But tomorrow, I'm going to pick up where I left off. And it's just a little visit to my past. And I hope I say something to make somebody want to take an adventure in their past, and just to see how much you can remember something. And even when your memory does come back in flashes, you might question, where did that vision or where did that picture come from? And if you are young, you can play with that flashback that you see, because it is, you probably have a lot of people that's older than you, and they could verify some memories that you have. But if you're my age, mostly people that could verify, they're dead and gone on. But it's good to do this at a young age and retrain yourself to memorize or go back in memory and pull up these memories, because they are there. We just forget how to access them. We forget how to call them up. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to finish eating my tea cakes. Okay, bye bye.